In 1996, Capcom took us to Infinity War and beyond. Kinda. Hey, Chris Baker here, hopping on to the Avengers Infinity War hype train to begin what I hope becomes a long-running series on this channel. A series that looks back to licensed games that set out to, or at least appeared to set out to, directly adapt well-known source material to video game form. This is not a video game review. Rather, it's an in-depth story and presentation analysis meant to determine one thing. Did this game succeed as an adaptation of its source material? In other words, is it a rad-aptation or a bad-aptation? Don't like those puns? Tough. By November 1996, the 16-bit era was next to dead. The Sega Saturn and upstart Sony PlayStation rang in the new console generation more than a year before, and Super Mario 64 was revolutionizing the 3D action game on Nintendo's recently released new console. In other words, nobody cared about a new Super NES release. So what better time for Capcom to put out Marvel Super Heroes War of the Gems? It's a game I find a lot of Marvel fans have heard of, but few have ever actually played. To briefly describe the gameplay, it more or less tries to blend the arcade hype of the phenomenal classic Marvel superheroes with the gameplay of the highly regarded X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. And in doing so, it reaches nowhere near the heights of either. The same analogy applies to what passes for a story in War of the Gems. In much the same way the game awkwardly combines two Capcom superhero classics, its plot, character choice, and even its costume selections offer a confused mishmash of, to present them in the order they were released, Thanos Quest, The Infinity Gauntlet, and Infinity War. The fact that the movie Infinity War looks to have more in common with those first two than the comic it takes its name from is another matter entirely. Still closer than Age of Ultron, though. So let's take a look at this story. Before the game begins, its attract mode sets the scene with a very apparent need for an editor and some misleading assertions, but nothing truly outrageously wrong. Infinity Gems. There are 6 different Infinity Gems. I'm getting the feeling this is about Infinity Gems. Each gem controls one of the forces of either time, space, power, reality, mind, or soul. Don't use the word either when you're listing 6 things. It is said that the being who obtains all of the gems will become omnipotent, ruler of the universe. That's a little misleading. Sure, you can become omnipotent if you've collected all 6 gems, and yes, you could stand your best possible chance at ruling the universe. But you could also just, hold on to them and be a nice person with a day job if you wanted to. That's an option. And then all of a sudden we get some quotes out of nowhere. Someone has started to gather these 6 gems. We'll find out in a second this is Adam Warlock talking, but really, Adam, why so vague? Are you trying to build suspense? We all know that you're talking about Thanos already. Or are you? More on that tease later. Next sentence. If they can gather all of these gems, the universe will suffer in a new age of evil. You must help, Adam Warlock asked Earth's mightiest heroes. No, he didn't ask, Capcom. Do you see a question mark there? That's pretty clearly a command. And furthermore, is everyone just supposed to know who this Adam Warlock guy even is? If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you already know he's a super powerful space dude at the very least, and his existence in the MCU is imminent if the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is to be believed. But to most gamers in 1996, Adam Warlock was super obscure if they'd even heard of him at all. Also, if I'm a big Marvel fan who already knows his stuff, I'm pretty confident I'm playing an Avengers game when the phrase Earth's Mightiest Heroes is in play. So let's just see exactly who Mr. Warlock is addressing. Okay, that's 2 Avengers out of the 5 playable characters. At this point in comics history, Spider-Man and Wolverine were close to a decade away from getting their own Avengers cards, while Hulk hadn't been a member for even a longer stretch of time. So that leaves Captain America and Iron Man, who I guarantee you at the time were the 4th and 5th picks for most players. No one really cared about those guys back then. Still, it's cool to see a team of heroes like this for a Marvel Universe game at the time. The characters involved did help it connect to the other game with Marvel superheroes in the title that shared the same logo, and was much better. But hey, more story text! Knowing that the fate of the entire universe is at stake, Earth's mightiest heroes... They used that phrase again already? Assemble. Okay, I'll allow that Avengers reference. To assist Adam Warlock in preventing the Infinity Gems from falling into the wrong hands. So they're just gonna go ahead and trust this space dude that most of the audience has never heard of. Got it. On the bright side, I do like all the pixel art going on right here. Very consistent with the style of the fighting game. After the title screen, the Attract mode treats us to some basic character bios, which again suffer a bit when it comes to wording. It's nickname, not nickname. Complete with metric system measurements every American kid can immediately relate to, and the occasional head scratcher that passes for a fact. For years, I thought Captain America's shield was made of adamantium, and I blame this bio for that. He has carried an adamantium replacement shield before, and it was long thought that adamantium was indeed a second metal alloy in the shield, which is probably where this came from. But Capcom, if you're gonna name one metal alloy here, it's gotta be vibranium. Next up, Spidey. This info seems to check out, except, hey, what's this? He fights for the responsibility of man? Oh right, that thing Uncle Ben told him, with great power there must also come making sure people are obligated to do things. How silly of me. And he fights for the love of Mary Jane? I think if you asked MJ, she'd be totally fine with Peter hanging up those tights and settling down. On to Wolverine. We didn't know in 1996 that his real name is actually James Howlett, so that's actually not something we can say is wrong. But check out the weapons and power section. It totally leaves out his most significant actual power, that being his healing factor. Which of course he doesn't have during gameplay anyway, so might as well go all the way with omitting its existence. I guess the Iron Man bio totally checks out, but do we really need to put Tony in quotes? Couldn't it just be Anthony or Tony? And finally, Hulk, who just looks kinda weird, doesn't he? The brown pants seem a bit of a compromise between the horrendous brown outfit he wore at the time in the comics and his traditional purple pants. Brucey's kind of a weird nickname, but that's kind of a dumb vital stat to have in there anyway. And finally, his hatred for injustice is second to none. Injustice? He smashes everything because villains don't get their comeuppance? Or does he just really hate DC fighting games that don't exist yet? Maybe a little of both. Enough fun with bios. We're over 8 minutes in and we haven't even started playing the game yet, so let's do that. As the Infinity Gems fall to Earth. Wait, hold up. I'm stopping this sentence with this introductory clause. What? Why are they falling to Earth? Where did they come from? Who released them? If this is a true Infinity Gauntlet that you're going for here, Capcom, these things should be spread across the galaxy like we see when they're collected by Thanos in Thanos Quest. But go ahead, keep telling your tale. As the Infinity Gems fall to Earth, the human race begins to realize that it is in grave danger. So the world's population is seeing this happen right now? Everyone knows that these gems are bad and that they're gonna hurt us? How do they know that? The heroes determined to assist Adam Warlock. Again, why are they so eager to help Adam Warlock? You gotta at least throw in a line about his identity, guys. The heroes, determined to assist Adam Warlock, began to search for the gems that have been scattered over the world. Stark Enterprises' supercomputer has pointed out 4 locations where the Infinity Gems may have landed. Oh good, it's geography time. Number 1. Near Dr. Doom's castle in Latveria. Wait, that's Eastern Europe right there? Number 2. The Amazon River Basin in the central region of South America. I mean, maybe that's South America? Alaska in the northern region of North America. Thanks for clarifying what part of North America the largest state in the United States is located in. I wasn't really sure. Number 4. The Boston Aquarium in the eastern area of North America. Random, but okay, sure. Wait, let's back up to Alaska's location again. Now granted, we've got a really cloudy day on our hands here, but rather than land to the west of Alaska, shouldn't we be looking at the biggest ocean in the world? That sure does look like a solid landmass between North America and Asia. Oh well, I'm sure they'll nail any other geographical instances that pop up in this game. Investigate these areas immediately. Sure thing, AW. Whoa, more geography already. I see Capcom was part of the Flat Earther movement all the way back in 1996. Anyway, let's take a look at the places we can go. First up, Avengers Base. Cool, I can't wait to check it out when I go to Northwest Mexico. Arizona, maybe? That's certainly not Manhattan, where they are in Infinity Gauntlet. The Boston Aquarium looks close enough for everyone who's ever wanted to play a video game at the Boston Aquarium. And there's Alaska, just past actual Alaska, apparently hovering in outer space. Meanwhile, we've got Dr. Doom's castle in Scandinavia? Now, I know that area is a made-up country and all, but it's also very clearly defined as being in Eastern Europe. The gypsy culture is actually a huge part of Victor Von Doom's backstory. Not many gypsies hanging out with Vikings. Though now that I've had the image in my head, I'd kinda like to see that. Finally, the Amazon looks right. Good job, I guess. Let's actually play this game now. What's in store from a story perspective as we actually start to mash some buttons with Spider-Man in Alaska? Tall as its mountains may be, I'm not thinking they're very conducive to web swinging. Gow, what's he fighting? The guy on the right kind of looks like that one grinning guy in the Mos Eisley Cantina if he had like a full body sunburn. Actually, this is exactly where the Infinity War comic, again, definitely not the Infinity War movie, fits in. One of its big things is having our heroes fight evil doppelgangers of themselves, which is where most of the enemies you fight in War of the Gems derive from. For that reason, the fact that 80% of the gameplay revolves around this, I'd call this an Infinity War game above all else. This encounter actually does a pretty nice job of showing how they sometimes ripped doppelgangers straight from the comics, like evil Daredevil here. Or they chose to create their own version, probably for the sake of easier art assets since Wolverine is already otherwise in the game. Fun side note, when I worked on Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and we needed some alternate color schemes for Wolverine and Hawkeye, I suggested Capcom go with some of the ones used in War of the Gems as an homage. See, I don't hate this game, guys. So we've got comic doppelgangers, made-up doppelgangers, and then we have guys like Evil Sasquatch here from Alpha Flight, who just kind of look like they normally would. Actually, it's kind of funny because every doppelganger mini-boss or boss who has a health bar just has an E in front of their name. The fact that it stands for evil is what I'm just assuming here, but since it's Capcom, for all I know, these are all distant relatives of E Honda. I kind of like that in my headcanon, actually. So Spidey beats E Sasquatch, and the time gem falls from the sky. So was E Sasquatch actually guarding it? Or did the gem need to know that Spidey was a worthy guy before it presented himself to him? Yes, I know I'm overthinking this, but it would have been nice if at least some form of logic were applied here, you know. This is the time gem, not just some mysterious orb you get by beating a boss in Castlevania. All due respect to Castlevania, it's an awesome game. After saying the same generic phrase he'll say at the end of each level he beats, Spidey hands the time gem over to the next character we choose to play as. Let's go with Wolverine in the Amazon. And one cool thing from a gameplay perspective, now that we have the time gem, it can be used if we equip it before the next fight. Here's what each of these gems does. They're probably bending actual canon a little bit to be able to use them like this, but when it comes in the service of better gameplay that's still very much rooted in its source material, that's when we should be all for this sort of thing. So Wolvie takes on some evil Visions and She-Hulks, then some evil Hawkeyes and Pucks, Actually, between Puck and Sasquatch, I think this probably has more Alpha Flight representation than any other Marvel game ever released. They're both evil, too. Capcom have some kind of secret anti-Canadian agenda? So then Wolverine goes down, and we add the reality gem to our collection. Just a couple things that amused me at the flooding Boston Aquarium. Who designed this place? Why are there doors that slam down? And platforms! That doesn't seem very friendly to visitor traversal. Is this an accurate portrayal of your local sea zoo, Bostonians? And are there evil Iron Men there with spiky shoulder pads? Because spikes are evil, I guess? I gotta say though, I'm pretty impressed with the game's portrayal of Castle Doom. Aside from the ridiculous platforming, it does feel suitably Dr. Doom, complete with old-school Doom bots. But then again, see if you can spot what's wrong with this picture once you beat him. No, it's not the hokey dialogue, we're numb to that by this point in the game. Rather, Doom is wearing a mask. And as much as I appreciate Capcom's extra effort to instill the finest 16-bit lip flap technology, they shouldn't have done that for Victor here. And then this happens. Now, don't hate yourself if you've never heard of Magus. In a nutshell, he's evil Adam Warlock. He doesn't appear in the Infinity Gauntlet at all, but he's the main antagonist of the Infinity War, responsible for all of those doppelgangers that we've been fighting this whole game. Anyway, more reading. After obtaining the second gem, our heroes have learned the enemy's name is the Magus. Aren't you glad Adam Warlock didn't tell us this right away at the beginning of the game? Weren't you just like so in suspense for this kind of payoff? No? Okay. He is gathering the gems and using a huge orbiting battleship as his base. Doesn't the phrase "is gathering" imply that he actually has some in his possession? Like multiple ones? The universe will never be safe until the Magus is defeated. Serious though, as someone who just now is meeting this character playing this game, can we get some vague idea of who he is and what makes him so dangerous? With that in mind, the heroes decided to charge the orbiting spacecraft. And now we're on said spacecraft. Lots more doppelgangers until we get to the Magus himself. And this right here is pretty weird, since the Magus appears to be wielding the Infinity Gauntlet. In fact, it's the closest thing we have to any actual mention of the Infinity Gauntlet in this game. Turns out he does have a power gem in there, nothing else. Our team of heroes right now actually has more Infinity Gems than he does. But apparently not even a power gem can save you from an endless barrage of punches to the crotch from Spider-Man. Maybe instead of the Infinity Gauntlet, the Magus should have worn a cup. The heroes have finally defeated the Magus. Finally? We just met him, and that was like 5 minutes ago. That level was not very long. However, the Magus only had one of the gems. At that moment... What moment? At that moment, a message appeared on the computer screen. I am Thanos. So far, so good. Hear me, heroes of Earth. Only I am qualified to possess the Infinity Gems. Give me the gems, or you shall die. Okay, nice super villainy there, I guess. Realizing that Thanos is mad with power, the heroes of Earth decided to find the remaining 3 gems. Didn't they decide to find all of them at the beginning of the game? The computer has pointed out 4 possible new locations. Oh boy, more bad geography coming up. Number 1, Egypt in the north of the African continent. Geez, just say Egypt, it's easy. We know where Egypt is. Number 2, Asteroid Belt. See, now that I could use some more specifics with. Are you talking about the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, I guess? Number 3, an abandoned mining complex in Arizona. It's no Boston Aquarium, but sure. Number 4, Mount Vesuvius, Italy. Oh, now we're talking. Oh, new map locations. Avengers HQ, still in the wrong place. Arizona's apparently closer to Montana? The asteroid belt is orbiting Earth? Look down and Egypt is in the right place, but how do you mess up Italy, Capcom? Put that red circle on the boot, not above it. Hopefully Cap can find the place. Wait, did I miss this earlier? He enters the scene without his shield, and it just flies to him from the completely opposite side of the screen. Whoa, it's a gratuitous Doctor Strange appearance, wearing his hip new 90s duds that lasted like a year or two. This is actually one of the more fun sequences in the game, but it's unfortunate that it's our only taste of the Silver Surfer. He's an incredibly key player in the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's just not in this game other than this scene right here as an evil doppelganger. And now a battle with the E-Thing, where Cap uses his special move, i.e. lifting his shield above his head, to cause massive damage. Then he does his best Gollum impression as he holds up his shield in the air once more, this time writhing in agony as the magma within the volcano consumes his flesh and bone. At least that's what should be happening here. Then we send Hulk to Egypt to brave its notorious quicksand, and I guess to enter what I can only assume to be a pyramid with a wide open door and one hell of a security system. More of the same doppelgangers we've been fighting all game, topped off with a boss fight with E-Hulk, who was apparently just a mummy? And seriously, the word evil fits super easily when the other word only has 4 letters in it. You couldn't put that in there, guys. There's really not a whole lot to say about Iron Man's journey through the Arizonan mine in Montana. Just another E-Daredevil at the end. And now we've got Spidey, completely unequipped for outer space fighting on an asteroid. And Dr. Doom is here waiting for him for some reason, still flapping that lip on his mask. He hits us with that only me rhetoric that Thanos hit us with earlier. And again, Spidey, all those low blows. I wonder what Doom says after we beat him. Wait, that's it? You just beat up Dr. Doom on an asteroid and move on like he's a common doppelganger? And then we've got Blackheart? Not only does a demon from hell being on asteroid make no sense, they also added a superfluous space to his name. He may be in the Marvel Superheroes fighting game, but he has no place in anything related to the Infinity Gauntlet. His dad does though. But here's where things start to get really interesting. Yep, it's Nebula. But here's what's really weird about this Nebula appearance. Right here, right now, she looks pretty much like you know her from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all cyborged up. But in the Infinity Gauntlet, she looked like this. Before she looked like a living corpse, she was just a space pirate who believed herself to be Thanos' granddaughter. But Thanos thought that was a stupid idea, so he did this to her. And if you've read the Infinity Gauntlet, you know that she actually gets the gauntlet for herself, converts herself back to the way she used to look, and still looks nothing like a cyborg. That actually happens in the pages of Silver Surfer a few months later. But one thing she most certainly never has been by 1996 is a servant of Thanos. Forget what you know about the MCU, she never served Thanos, she just claimed to be his granddaughter, and she was just a space pirate. In fact, with the look you see here, she absolutely hates him. He almost killed her. She's not gonna call him master. But then again, she does make a pretty cool boss fight right here. I find it particularly striking seeing this shrine that it makes no allusion to who the shrine is actually for, which is Death. By contrast, in the final stage of the Marvel Superheroes fighting game, we do see Death, along with Mephisto, Blackheart's dad, both of whom are pretty prominent in the Infinity Gauntlet story. So after we beat Nebula, Thanos shows up to be a bad guy. Again, with Marvel Superheroes, Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet. Here, he just has gold gloves. It just feels like a less gratifying way to beat him. Let's take a moment to reflect on a couple other things that happened here too. The Thanos quest of the story called Thanos Quest is to gather the gems. The heroes did that in this game, and then they marched right to Thanos with all of them in tow. All Thanos has to do right now is win, and he has them all without doing any real work at all. Our heroes are just really dumb in this game. The final text that we see here, it's not terrible, I guess, but again, the heroes are super trusting to this creepy space dude they barely know. I promise you, I'll use the gems to benefit everyone. Yeah, sure dude, we trust you. Finally, will the world ever truly be safe? Be honest, it probably could be eternally safe if the heroes use the reality gem to make it that way, but I guess that's not very heroic. But in the end, it's pretty obvious that Capcom was telling their own version of Thanos Quest, Infinity Gauntlet, and Infinity War all rolled into one, but very poorly and with no real respect for the actual events and characterizations of the source material. And for that, the verdict? Bad adaptation. But I still kind of like that it exists. Tell me what you think about bad adaptation or radaptation. Is that a good idea? Should I do more videos like this? Did I say anything that you really disagree with concerning War of the Gems? Is there anything I missed that I probably should have pointed out? Let me know in the comments. And as always, follow Spider-Ham's advice. I'll see you next time.